The house smelled faintly of salt and cedar. His boots stood by the door, upright, disciplined, clean. It was the only part of him that still looked regulation. The rest had changed. His beard was rougher, hair threaded with gray, shoulders carrying the invisible pack that no rucksack had ever held. He'd been home for 72 hours, and already the walls felt both too close and too quiet. His daughter, Emma, stood in the hallway clutching a stuffed dog by the ear. 7 years old. She tilted her head like she was studying a reflection in a warped mirror. "Mom," she whispered, "is that really him?" He smiled, soft and awkward, a motion his face had forgotten how to make. "Hey, Peanut." But she didn't move closer, not yet. He set his duffel down and scanned the living room the way one reads a map: entry points, exits, sightlines. Habit, not choice. His wife, Lily, watched him with that tired, practiced kindness of someone who had rehearsed this homecoming in her mind for months and now wasn't sure which version had arrived. At dawn, he woke before anyone else. 0400. Muscle memory. Coffee hissed and steamed in the stillness. He sat at the kitchen table with his hands wrapped around the mug, listening to the hum of the refrigerator. No orders, no radio, just the thin, high note of silence. He believed strength meant carrying it alone, that asking for help was weakness, that control was safety. So he said nothing about the nights on deployment that still replayed like flickers behind his eyelids. Instead, he stared at his boots by the door, 2 sentries guarding a life he didn't know how to re-enter. By February, his days had rhythm again. Tight, predictable, safe. Wake at 0500. Run 2 miles along the boardwalk, the air sharp with sea spray. Coffee, eggs, chores. Each hour became a mission objective, neat and controlled. He hung his uniform in the closet like a relic and filled the gap with lists taped to the fridge. Groceries, repairs, read to Emma. Routine steadied him. His hands, once used for heavier work, found a quieter strength in shaping wood. Down at the youth center's garage, he volunteered in the woodshop twice a week. He taught the kids how to square edges, how to measure twice and cut once. Patience makes precision, he'd say, voice even, like giving orders to ghosts. They liked him, called him Coach. Emma came once, shy at first. He helped her sand the corner of a crooked birdhouse until it fit. "It doesn't have to be perfect," she said, grinning, "just strong enough for wings." He laughed then, an unguarded sound that startled them both. At home, he began to sleep 4, sometimes 5 hours straight. He wrote in a small notebook. Not much, just bullet points. Ran, built, helped, smiled. He didn't call it journaling. That word felt too soft. But the act gave shape to his days. Still, inside, a quiet tension coiled. He avoided crowds, avoided questions, avoided mirrors too long. Every success felt borrowed, every calm evening fragile. When his wife asked if he wanted to talk to someone from the VA, he said, "I'm good." His tone was clipped, polite, final. Control was working. Or so he thought. He didn't notice the way his daughter flinched when his voice sharpened during small frustrations. He didn't see that control could harden faster than healing could grow. March brought the first warm Saturday of the year in the town's spring fair. Banners waved, kids ran with paper flags, and the smell of popcorn drifted over the harbor. He went because Emma wanted to, because he wanted to try. For a while, it worked. They won a small stuffed bear at the ring toss, shared cotton candy that left her hands sticky and pink. Her laughter was quick, light, contagious. He started to think, maybe this is it. Maybe we're okay. Then came the sound. A diesel truck backfired near the parade route, sharp, metallic, too close. His breath locked, the world tunneled, his hand shot out instinctively, scanning for danger that wasn't there. Emma's eyes widened. "Dad?" she whispered, but he wasn't here, not yet. When the noise faded, he found himself crouched, scanning the crowd's edges. A vendor stared. Emma's small hand hung midair, unanswered. He forced a smile, thin and broken, murmured, "It's fine, baby." "Dad's fine." But the lie felt heavy. They walked home quietly. She didn't hold his hand. That absence burned more than any memory. That night, he sat outside on the porch steps staring at the ocean's black horizon. Every wave sounded like a pulse he couldn't calm. Lily joined him, wrapped in a blanket. "You don't have to carry it alone," she said. He nodded but didn't meet her eyes. She went inside. He stayed until the coffee in his thermos turned cold. In his journal, he wrote only one word: failure. He didn't return to the youth center that week, didn't run, didn't answer messages. Control, the armor he'd trusted, had cracked, and underneath it was a man unsure how to breathe without orders. He answered the backfire by doubling down. If weakness had ambushed him once, he wouldn't let it again. More miles, more sets, more silence. Each morning became a battle drill. Push harder, lift heavier, outrun whatever still lived behind his ribs. He stripped the house of softness. No TV, no music, no idle time. He cleaned the garage twice in 1 week, alphabetized tools, repainted the trim that didn't need it. Activity became armor, exhaustion his camouflage. When Lily suggested the VA support group again, he said, "I'm fine. I just need to stay busy." The tone wasn't angry, just flat, like a door quietly locking. She folded her arms, studying him. Staying busy isn't the same as healing. He didn't respond. He'd learned long ago that silence ended arguments faster than truth. At night, he'd lie awake, counting seconds between the ceiling fan's clicks. Sleep came shallow and mean, dreams full of phantom orders, unfinished missions, faces that turned away. When dawn came, he'd sit at the kitchen table, staring at his own reflection in the window until the sky lightened enough to justify motion again. Emma stopped asking him to read bedtime stories. She learned his patterns, when to stay quiet, when to step wide around the gravity of his mood. Children have their own kind of radar. One night she left her stuffed dog on his pillow, a wordless peace offering. He moved it gently to her doorway before lacing his shoes for another run. He told himself he was rebuilding discipline, but what he was really doing was hiding behind sweat, structure, and denial. The armor had kept him alive once. Now it was starving him of connection. Tuesday morning, rain drifted sideways across the harbor. He sat in the corner booth of Miller's Diner, a black coffee cooling in front of him. He liked it there, neutral ground. The hiss of the espresso machine covered his thoughts. The smell of bacon and grease felt familiar, grounding. An older man slid onto the stool across from him without asking. Silver hair, steady hands, a denim jacket faded at the elbows. A service patch peeked from beneath the cuff. Different branch, same weight in the shoulders. "You mind?" the man asked. He shrugged. "Free country." For a while they just sat in silence. The old man stirred his coffee slowly. Then, eyes on the window, he said, "You ever notice how we keep building walls when we get home? Like we forgot the mission changed?" He looked up, wary. "What mission?" The man smiled. "Survive here." Something in the simplicity of it cracked his resistance. He didn't answer, but his chest loosened just enough to breathe differently. The old man continued, voice quiet, even. "Strength isn't a wall, son. It's a bridge, built out of what you carried, not what you hide." The words landed, no speeches, no pity, just a truth set down like a tool within reach. Before leaving, the man tapped the table twice and said, "Try this next time the noise comes, 4 in, 6 out. Not for control, but for calm." He demonstrated once. Inhale slow, exhale longer. The breath filled the space between them with something human. When the man left, the veteran sat still, matching the rhythm. 4 inches, 6 out. The coffee had gone cold, but the silence felt different now, less sharp, more spacious. He didn't call it healing. He just called it trying again. The morning after the diner, he woke before dawn as usual, but instead of lacing his running shoes, he sat on the porch steps. The rain was light, rhythmic, steady. He breathed, 4 in, 6 out. The air smelled of wet pine and sea salt. He didn't fight the thoughts this time. He let them drift past like small boats. He began adding one new thing each week. Nothing dramatic, just small adjustments. He wrote down 5 things he could see, 4 things he could feel, 3 things he could hear. It was a grounding exercise the old man had mentioned once at the VA. It sounded strange at first, but he found it worked. It kept him here. One afternoon, he showed up to the veterans peer group Lily had quietly signed him up for. He sat near the door, hands folded, eyes down. The first session, he said nothing. The second, he managed a nod. By the third, he said, "Sometimes it feels like I never stopped being over there." Heads nodded around the circle. No pity, no judgment, just recognition. That quiet solidarity hit deeper than applause ever could. He started working again at the youth center, helping the kids rebuild a bench for the playground. Emma came along more often. They'd talk while sanding the wood. Small talk, but real. She told him about a friend at school, about a science project. One day, when she handed him a screw, she said, "You smile more now." That night, he read to her for the first time in months. 2 pages, 2 deep breaths between each. She fell asleep with her head on his shoulder, her stuffed dog wedged between them. He stayed still, memorizing the sound of her breathing. By late summer, the rhythm of his life felt less like discipline and more like music. Steady, imperfect, alive. The early mornings were no longer about outrunning ghosts, but about greeting the day. He brewed coffee, fed the neighbor's old lab when they were away, and sat in the quiet to watch the harbor light come up gold. He had started mentoring teens at the youth center full-time, not just about woodworking, but about the deeper craft, patience, teamwork, self-respect. "Measure twice, cut once," he'd say, then grin. Same goes for choices. The kids laughed, but they listened. They always did. Emma was part of the Saturday group now. Together they built a small cedar box for seashells collected on beach walks. When they finished, she traced her finger along the edge and asked to sign the bottom. "Dad's hands," she wrote in careful block letters. "My hands." He swallowed hard, smiling. The grain of the wood shimmered under the light like calm water. He still had moments, triggers that came uninvited, nights that ran long, but he'd learned how to meet them. Breathwork, journaling, walks, reaching out to another vet before the silence got too deep. Healing wasn't a straight line. It was a circle, revisited with grace instead of shame. Sometimes, on the trail walks he led for local families, he'd pause to watch the sunrise break over the dunes. People often thanked him for guiding them. He'd shake his head. "We're all just walking each other home," he'd say, voice quiet but sure. At home, his boots still stood by the door, but now they were untied, relaxed. Not sentries anymore, just shoes, ready for wherever life wanted to take him next. The harbor glowed pale gold when he walked Emma to school. She ran ahead, her laughter rolling down the sidewalk like a melody that once felt lost. He paused at the mural, the same one he'd passed 100 times before, its painted flag alive with morning light. For the first time, he didn't see duty or regret staring back. He saw continuity. He saw grace. You might recognize this feeling, the moment when the armor finally feels too heavy to carry, yet you're afraid of what's beneath it. The truth is, healing doesn't ask for perfection. It asks for permission. Permission to breathe, to stumble, to rebuild at human speed. From his journey, a few lessons endure, steady, quiet, and real. Routine is not control, it's a doorway to peace. Discipline means showing up even when gentleness feels foreign. Courage isn't what you carry into battle, it's what you face when you're home. Letting go doesn't erase the past, it honors what remains. Healing is slow work. Measure twice, forgive often. Asking for help is advanced training. Service never ends, it simply changes shape. You are still needed, still capable, still becoming. He didn't become someone new, he became more himself. A man who learned that strength can whisper, that peace is a practice, and that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stay. If you're walking a similar road, this story is for you. Sit down. Breathe. Tell someone where it hurts. You're not alone on this path. We're all just learning to come home, one sunrise at a time. See you next time.